November 19th, we moved up to a place called Hill 875. Our 2nd Battalion had been there and had suffered a bunch of casualties. In fact, 50 of them were killed on a short bomb dropped, friendly fire. And they were all wounded, and they just dropped the bomb on the CP. Our battalion was sent up there to help them out. I happened to be the point man for the battalion. It was actually a floating point, which is 3 people. I took the center, and I had two of my guys, one on each side, right and left. We humped all day long, and we got to the base of the hill almost around daybreak, or nightfall. Right? It was starting to get dark. My 2 guys that I had with me, I left at the base of the hill to wait for the battalion to come behind us. And I went up the hill myself. I crawled up that hill, and my biggest worry was my own guys shooting me. I knew they had been in battle for 2 nights. They were jittery, and they were shooting at sound. They were not shooting at sight. So I crawled up that hill. It was 885 meters. And I crawled up it. I passed a bunch of dead bodies, both MVA and Americans, on my way up there. The smell of war was there. The gunpowder, the bombs, everything was there. The smell was very heavy. And I crawled up there, and every couple inches I crawled, I said, 4th back coming in, 4th back coming in, hoping that whoever was on top of that hill in foxholes would hear me and not shoot me. I was worried about my own people shooting me. And I got to the base of the hill, or the top of the hill, and 3 helmets popped up out of a hole. And one of them was Hispanic. That's all I remember. And he says, "Man, am I glad to see you." So I crawled up to him. We didn't carry packs in. We carried extra water, and we carried ammunition. And I passed out my water. And I asked the guy, "Where's your CP at?" Meaning command post. He says, "There is no CP." I says, "Well, where are we at?" He says, "I don't know." He says, "I'm here. That's all I know." So I crawled up into the center and found nothing. I found wounded people. One guy was laying in a foxhole, and he had half of his buttocks missing. I handed him a canteen, I gave him some water, and I said, "Don't worry, the whole 4th Battalion's behind me. We'll be here." So I tried to comfort whoever I ran into there, and did that somewhat successfully. Our battalion got in, we reinforced the perimeter, we called in bombs the next morning, and we set up for our first assault. First assault was a disaster. The NVA soldiers were in heavy bunkers, and they had fields of fire to cover all of us. We started moving up that hill, and people just dropping off like crazy. Most of it was 40 repel grenade type things, mortars, and AK-47 fire. It was a lot of rifle fire and mortars. I got hit with the mortar on the first assault, right? And I don't know exactly what really happened, because when I started up, I had a guy next to me that was carrying a flamethrower, and he took a bullet in the head and died. Right after that, a mortar came in, and my mind is vacant at that point. All I know is when I became conscious, I was not in the same spot I was when the mortar hit. I was like off to the left or something. I had a combat engineer with me, and I had a medic with me. All of us were wounded. The combat engineer took most of the blast, and he was lacerations head to toe. The medic had no lacerations, but both legs were broken. They were like spread out to the side. I had a big hole in the back of my neck, went through my steel pot into the back of my neck, all the way to my spinal cord. My spinal cord was visible. I asked the medic. I was bleeding some, but not too much at the time, because the shrapnel had fused the blood vessels. The medic wrapped a bandage around me, and we were about 15 feet from the CP at the time. The medic couldn't move, the engineer couldn't move. I rolled the engineer off of his stomach onto his back. I tried to drag the medic back 15 feet, and he told me he couldn't move. And I says, well, we're all wounded here, seriously, and we got to get some help. So I crawled back 15 feet. I ran into the captain, which was Captain Leonard. I said, I got 2 wounded guys here. You got to give me some help to get them out. And he refused to let me go back and get them. He says, I'll get them. You get to the helipad and get out of here. And that's where I ended Hill 875. I went back to Vietnam after 2 months in Japan hospital. I went back to Vietnam and stayed with my company, but no big action after that.
What was the fate of the engineer and the medic?
I don't really know. As a matter of fact, just yesterday I was talking to a couple combat engineers, and his name was Ellis. When I got back to the field after my hospital stay, I asked about both of them. I could not get any information on the medic. But the engineer, somebody told me that the engineer survived. The medic, the last I heard, and I bring his name, I don't know his name, but I bring him up quite a bit. And last I heard, all the medics were killed on Hill 875. Now, he didn't have any lacerations. He had 2 broken legs, and I know they got him back to the helipad to be evacuated. And I never heard anything after that. But I'd like to meet him again, too. No.
So, what was your recovery process in the hospital like?
Was very good. I went to a field hospital in Vietnam. They looked at me and shipped me right out to the Philippines. In the Philippines, I had surgery. They removed all the shrapnel they could. I still have shrapnel in both wounds. I was wounded in the leg and in the neck. They removed that. The one thing I remember about that was I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was having hallucinations. I was going crazy in my bed. And when I came to my senses, my bed sheets were full of blood. My wounds had started leaking, and I looked up, and there were probably about 10 or 15 people in that ward, and they were just all looking at me. I look around, and they're just all looking at me. From there, I went to Japan, and I spent 2 months in Japan, and it was a pretty good stay. I remember that once you could move around, you could get a pass to go to town in Tokyo. So I was up and around, but you had to pull detail. And I was a sergeant, and my detail was just telling some private what to do, you know. But they assigned me to the burn ward. And I walked into the burn ward, and I was devastated. I just couldn't handle it. I walked out, and I told the officer in charge, I don't need a pass that bad. And I just not working in there. It was terrible. He gave me a pass anyway, and I went out to town. So I had a good time. It was my first time out. I was devastated when they told me I had to go back to Vietnam. I thought sure that my wounds were bad enough, and I only had 4 months left in the Army. I thought for sure I would be sent home. But no, I wasn't sent home. I had to go back for 4 months.